Hello everybody, National Master Jesse Cohen here from Summit School of Chess, and I am so excited today to look at all these PogChamp 3 championship bracket results. So I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to break this up into several different little videos, exploring the different matches. This first match that we had going on here was between SardOchesti and xQc. So let's just jump right in, okay? So in this first game, it looks like SardOchesti is playing white and xQc is playing black. D4, D5. Remember, in the opening, we're just trying to put a pawn or two in the middle, get our knights and bishops out of the back rank, and get our king safe. And if we can, keep our pieces safe too, right? Bishop f4. This London system bringing out the bishop. This is what I believe a lot of players in the PogChamps have been playing. The reason that this is so common is just such an easy system to learn. The pieces come out to the same squares most times, and it's good so much of the time. So it's easy to remember. Knight c6. Now, something I would recommend if I was xQc's coach is this. In queen pawn openings, it is like a cardinal sin to block your c-pawn. It's just something you don't want to do unless you really have experience and know exactly what you're doing. Typically, you want to play for c5 if you can make that happen. If that means playing e6 to give support and then playing c5, so be it. If you just want to kind of throw it out there, so be it. But again, typically we do not want to block our c-pawn when the queen pawn opening is what's going on here. Someone tell this to xQc for me. Knight c6, e3, e6. There was no reason to block in this bishop. We could have got it outside the pawn chain before it got locked in, right? Bishop g3, kind of moving the bishop for no real reason. Bishop d6, f4. Now this is just strange, okay? And there might be a deeper idea behind this that I don't know about, but it seems like white is combining systems. If white takes on this structure, it is starting to resemble what is known as a stone wall. And what happens is white takes this powerful bind on this e5 square and it'll plop a knight in there and all sorts of stuff. But usually the drawback is this bishop. The bishop that's the same color as all these pawns, because it just turns into a big, as my coach would say, a tall pawn. It's blocked everywhere. So what I don't understand is if we're trying to do that, why not trade off that bishop first and then play f4? Then it doesn't get trapped behind those pawns. That's my thought. Otherwise, I like this move. Knight f6, knight d2. Castle's kingside, knight e5. Or sorry, knight f3, rook e8, knight e5. Like I was saying before, a big part of this opening is to plant a knight in there and just let it sit there pretty. And if black ever takes it, it's just going to open up our position. Now black, I will give props to xQc. You don't want that knight to just sit there. And a lot of us would just trade off the knight for the knight. But we've got to look ahead. Pawn takes pawn, forks our pieces. That would have been terrible. Now xQc would lose a piece. So instead he correctly plays bishop takes, pawn takes towards the middle, also trying to open up the king side. The knight goes away, and c3. Now here I would just be thinking this, okay? Remember, people, when the center pawns are all locked, you got to go straight for the wing. And in this position, this is where the pawns are going to end up pointing. This is the direction that we should be attacking. I would be launching a huge attack on black's king. I'd be bringing this bishop over here. I'd be bringing this queen over here. I would castle kingside and this rook on f1, this bishop, everything would be aiming over there, and I would just maybe bring, there'd be so much attacking going on here. c3, nice consolidating move, not necessary. f6. You know what? I can't blame xQc here. The best defense against an attack on the wing is a counterattack in the center. Black just can't sit here. I mean, look at black's position. xQc has got to be feeling super cramped right now. The pieces are having such a hard time moving, and so he got to fight back. Pinning the pawn to the queen. Now we can't take it. It's so sad. This is kind of, okay, I can see what's happening here. So xQc he wants to play this pawn takes pawn so badly and fight back in the center, but we don't want to lose our queen. That'd be terrible, right? And so g5 attacks the bishop and says, go away so that I can actually take here. But we're doing something bad to do something good. And here's where chess gets hard. On one hand, we are not supposed to move the pawns in front of our castled king unless we have a really good reason. They are his #1 defense. So pushing them away weakens our king substantially. On the other hand, it's very aggressive, and it's insisting on his ways going down. And in chess, we can't just sit back and let the opponent just walk all over us. We've got to take control. This move has pros, this move has cons. Queen g4. Super interesting move by SardOchesti. Instead of defending the bishop, we pin the pawn to the king. There is no pawn takes bishop because of here. At this championship bracket, we are seeing so many advanced techniques. It's so awesome to see these players grow and grow. h6, bishop d3. Developing and trying to go after that king that's weakened himself. f5. Queen g3. King h8. Good move by xQc. In this position, after this queen, so right now the queen's got to save herself, right? But we also want to make sure that we don't forget our queen is pinning that pawn. If we just go somewhere wherever, our bishop is a goner. So moving back here, keeping that pin makes a ton of sense. But now this bishop has nowhere to go. Notice before it had an escape route. Now it is totally trapped. By playing this simple little king h8, the real idea is to unpin this pawn. This bishop is trapped, and now there's no saving it. Now xQc wins a piece. This is fantastic. Knight f3. Take. I think we could have taken a little bit slower, but this is fine. Take. Queen g5. This is exactly what we should be doing. Okay, remember, there's all sorts of advantages that you can get in chess, and one of the longest lasting advantages that everybody knows about, whether you play chess or not, I bet you could look at a chessboard and probably be like, well, I bet that that side's better because that side has more army than the other side does. In this position, xQc just won a piece for a pawn. We are up in points. We have a stronger leftover army. When you are up in points in chess, you want to do two things. You want to make even trades, even swaps. We want to trade off our queen for their queen, our knights for their bishop. Or sorry, our knights for their knights. Bishops, bishops, you get it, okay? Not so much the pawns, but we want to swap off all those other pieces. That way, we will be the only person left that has a piece, and we'll just pick off their pawns, make another queen, and win the game. So this move is fantastic. It takes a queen that's doing nothing, super activates it, brings it over to the king's side to try and neutralize these attacking ideas that SardOchesti has, and says, hey, let's trade queens. I would love that. And castles queenside. And we are so happy to trade queens. This is fantastic. The rook takes the open file. This is fantastic. Rook h3, knight b6. Now he's just trying to get out his pieces, okay? Remember, even though a lot of weird stuff has happened and we had to kind of take our time and address those things, we now need to get back on track. We still haven't brought out all of our pieces, and yeah, that should be priority number one. Bishop e2. I guess his bishop was tired of getting, you know, just biting on that granite. So maybe you can actually have some future over here maybe. Bishop d7, g4. Take, that's a free pawn. Rook g3, h5. Now, I've got to tell you, this position is just fantastic for xQc. Not only is he up a piece, but look at this rook. Take a really hard look at that rook. How is this rook ever going to do anything useful again? It's going to keep sitting on this square because everywhere else is not safe. There is no way to give this rook new squares, and it's just going to keep attacking a pawn guarded by this pawn. It is a piece. It is a zombie. That's what this is. You know, if no one else has claimed this phrase, I'm calling pieces that are still on the chessboard but technically dead. You know, they're alive but they're dead. Calling them zombies. I'm trademarking that. You heard that first right here. Some school chess. Anyways, bishop d3, rook f8. This is the blunder. xQc has been doing a phenomenal job, and he does another good thing. He takes this rook that's doing nothing, and he puts it on this amazing open file. Unfortunately, we didn't do the most important thing that we've got to do every single move, and what is that, my friends? Look for tactics. Look for those tricks. And how do we do that? Checks, captures, and threats. Every single time before I make a move, I have got to look, does my opponent have any way to attack my king, take my pieces, or threaten me? And I've got to know what ways they have and if it's going to hurt me. Right now, when this bishop goes here, it's helping this knight go give this check. Because before, if this knight just goes here, well, we're just going to take it for free with our rook. So the bishop is helping the knight get there, okay? And it's not a big deal. When it goes there, it just attacks the king. We don't have to take it with the rook. We can move our king. But when we play here, and now the knight goes there, unfortunately, it's attacking our king and our rook. That's a problem. This is actually, unfortunately, like this is where things actually start to fall apart. It's really, really sad and unfortunate. Again, it's not so bad that we're losing the exchange because we're already up in points and this rook is effectively dead. But we've got to be very, very careful. Here, I think we should play this king out instead. I know it seems weird, but after take and rook, and rook to h1 and rook to h8 guarding here, I think we can keep the h pawn safe enough, which means the g pawn will be safe enough, which means that this rook will still be dead, except that I guess white can play e4 now. I guess this is a bit more complicated than I thought. Anyways, the game didn't last too much longer after this. I won't drag it on too much. Knight g6. Unfortunately, we lost that. Then the bishop attacked the h-pawn. The h-pawn fell. Remember, pawn structures are like trees. You chop them down at the bottom and they all fall down. Once the h-pawn falls, the g-pawn falls, and xQc finds that he got mated, unfortunately. Even while he was still trying to follow strategies of activating his king in the endgame. So again, like, you know, what a tough game. Seriously, what a tough game. xQc came out the door with that tactic that, you know, had the double-edged sword and weakened his king, and then everything was super solid. He was trading everything off, and then he was just following those basic strategies of activating all of his pieces, and boom, got hit by a tactic. Boom, his pawn structure fell apart and released the rook, and it just kind of came tumbling down, and that's how chess can be. Let's just jump right into our second game, their rematch game. And that is right here. So now they switch colors. So we see xQc playing white and SardOchesti playing black. Let's just jump right in. Sicilian, e4, c5, the most popular opening in the world. We're not copycatting today. Bishop c4. Now, let me just say this. If you don't know anything really about chess, but you always play your pawn in front of your king 2 squares forward, which I recommend, and so does Bobby Fischer, and someone plays this move, this c5 move, this is the most popular move in the world. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's fine. All you have to remember is these two things. If the next two moves, basically no matter what black plays, you play knight f3 and pawn d4, and if they take you, you just take back with your knight. If you can just remember that, you're going to be fine. The main way to play this is just knight out. There's a lot of ways that black can play. The main way is here. We push our pawn. They take, we take. And from here, there's lots of ways to play. But if you do this, you're going to save yourself a lot of problems later on, I promise you, okay? Anyway, back to the game. Bishop c4, d6. Again, I'm not expecting these guys to have like this huge opening repertoire. These aren't professional chess players. They have other things that they're really, really good at. But still, they are following the main strategies, which are, again, fight for the center, get your pieces out. Get that king safe. Knight comes out, threatening the pawn, saves the pawn, brings out a knight. Okay, opening up that bishop, getting that king safe. Yep, everything's looking good. There's the d4, take and take. Now we're talking. a6. Okay, now I'll stop right here for a second. SardOchesti is just broken strategy. Typically, you don't really want to move your wing pawns like that. You know, you want to keep, like, you know, bring out this knight, bring out this bishop, bring out those knights and bishops, get this king safe, maybe find a way to put a pawn in the center, stuff like that. What is this a6 move all about? It looks like SardOchesti actually has been preparing some about the Sicilian defense. It is very common in the Sicilian to play your pawn to a6 to support this pawn to b5. This will start attacking white's pieces, like the bishop and even the knight to come. It can even help undermine the center, which I think we see in this game. And it can start helping black attack on the queen side. It is so common to see black attack on the queen side in this opening, thanks to the open c-file. Rook e1, b5, attacking the bishop, saving the bishop. Castle's kingside, queen f3. Now, again, I really like the way that xQc is playing. Like, this is like such a classic Sicilian position, okay? A lot of players don't understand the Sicilian too much, and it's kind of complicated because it breaks a lot of opening strategies. I mean, look at the position. White has 4 activated pieces, basically, possibly 5 if you count the queen on the open file, even though it hasn't been brought out. Black has 2. White has 2 of the 4 center squares. Black has none. Black has some space over here. That's about it. Why isn't white just much better? Well, the thing is that you'd be surprised. Try it for yourself. Black's pawns are actually extremely restricting towards white's pieces, and white doesn't have an immediate way to blow things up. Remember, when you have more pieces out, you want to blow things up quickly, but there just isn't quite a way here. Taking on here just doesn't work out. We don't have enough yet. Queen f3, activating that queen, maybe lining up for this kind of stuff. Maybe we can pop out a e5, hitting the knight and here. Bishop b7 says that's not going to happen. Queen e2. Now this is where I think is the first mistake. In chess, you want to do everything you can to insist on your ideas happening. In this position, black did something normal, developing the bishop and knight first. It brought the bishop off the back row, giving it a diagonal, and hey, it even pins the pawn to the queen. If that pawn moves, we can say goodbye to the queen. And I understand, pins are annoying. As my coach said, the pin is mightier than the sword. But I am not in immediate danger. This is not a threat. If I just make some random move and you take me, I'm fine. So this move, queen e2, unless there's some real deeper idea behind it, is a purely reactionary move. It goes backward, and it mostly exists just to say, please stop pinning me. And when your move is a retreating move that basically doesn't function for any other reason than to say, please don't hurt me, you had better take a really long look at that move before you do it. Because I'm telling you, as you become a stronger player, those are the kind of moves that'll kill you. You just let your opponent walk all over you. So again, this move isn't like killing us, but if we get caught in that mentality of just reacting, we're going to be in trouble. B4, attacking our knight again. What do? Gotta save it. Boom. E4 pawn falls. The pawn attacking the knight removed that key defender because we're not going to take it with our queen. F3 attacking the knight. Knight goes back to c5. So now xQc is down a pawn. But again, it's not game over by any means. There's a ton of pieces on the board, but he's got to get something going soon. A3. Making an attack over here, I guess. I don't care too much about that. Where are the pieces? The queen and the rook are aiming this way. The knight's aiming this way. This bishop's aiming this way. The pieces are aiming in the middle. This is attacking on the wrong side of the board. I'd be thinking more about moves like bishop f4, even if the fork might not actually be a thing. Or bishop e3. I'd be trying to bring this rook to d1. I'd be trying to activate everything and blow stuff up. Take. Black is doing correct. Remember, when you're up in points, you want to swap pieces. d5, take, bishop block, a5. Trade. Remember, every trade is helping black. And honestly, this trade helps black too. What is this rook doing? Not so much. After takes and takes, when this knight inevitably moves, which it does, this comes into play. I think that this is like one of those critical moments. So if there's anyone that ever watches this that somehow has a connection that knows xQc, I think that this was the critical moment right here. Right here. Because, remember, in chess, you want to get something good or some things good that are different from your opponent. In this position, xQc is down one pawn. That's what black has that is different and good. But what does white have? Piece activity. If you really look at white's pieces, how far they can go, where they're aiming at, white's pieces have a lot more places to go. They're aiming at a lot more black pieces, all sorts of stuff. White should be looking to use having more active pieces and try to keep more pieces on the board and keep attacking. In this position, xQc does something great. He takes a knight and puts it more in the center and he makes an attack. But he's letting his opponent trade off one of their unhappy rooks for one of our happy rooks. And every time that black does that, they just get rid of our active pieces until there's none left. And then all that remains is SardOchesti's extra pawn. So there goes a pair of rooks. And then here's where unfortunate happened. This was the end here. In this position, we have to guard our knight. But if our knight just moves somewhere, we realize that there's another knight behind it not protected. So we guard it. But now, rook c8, attacking that again and pinning it to our rook. If this knight moves just anywhere, they'll take our rook for free. So he tries to guard it again. But someone must have taught SardOchesti about putting pressure on pinned pieces. Knight a6. Remember, as masters, we want to target things that are slow. or don't move at all. This knight doesn't want to move at all because the rook would happily eat the queen. So black just keeps piling up, and now there's just no way to guard it anymore. And unfortunately, we try some desperate stuff, and we end up going down an entire rook, and the game goes for a little while longer. The end doesn't really matter too much. It slowly just fizzles out, and black just has way too much, and eventually it leads to a checkmate. So I don't know all the rules of PogChamps. I think that might mean that xQc is eliminated from championship. Maybe not. Don't quote me on that. But either way, this was some intense stuff. Again, I've been watching these guys since the beginning, and especially xQc has come so far. Again, I'm so proud of everyone for how they're playing. Keep up the great work. And yeah, I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to start looking at some of the other rounds. So I'll see you in just a moment. Bye for now.